So, finally, to wrap up the types of contaminants here, we're going to wrap up the last two pretty quickly and easily. So, chemical contaminants are chemicals, cleaners, sanitizers, polishes, machine lubricants, pesticides, deodorizers, first aid products, or even health and beauty products. So, these are chemicals that are used in and around food service. And it's really important to make sure that you use them properly and that you store them properly. So there are some toxic metals. There are some things you shouldn't necessarily serve food out of. There are some that are food safe, and you want to make sure that you're kind of paying attention. You can even get some types of painted pottery that can kind of contaminate food items. Make sure that things are designed to be in food service, that you're not just using something that's decorative to put food in, because you can make people sick that way. So depending on the chemical consumed depends on the symptoms. So generally it happens within minutes. Vomiting and diarrhea are typical. If you think that chemical contamination has been suspected, then call poison control. The best way to prevent chemical contaminants is to make sure that you are using the right chemicals. Keep them away from food items so that you don't accidentally put dish soap in when you're supposed to be putting baking soda in. Make sure that the food service areas are clear of the chemicals. Use them as directed. So make sure that you are using them at the make sure that you are using the chemicals at the proper amount. I use the example, I know a lot of my students and their families put bleach into the dishwater, and that's okay if you do, and it's okay if you don't. We do have treated water. There shouldn't be parasites. The soap should kill the germs and bacteria. So if you're not putting bleach into the dishwater, then that's fine. The soap really does the job. But if you are, that's okay too. And you want to be extra sure, use a capful or a little spoonful. You don't just pour bleach into there, making sure that you're using the proper amount to avoid the poisoning. Same thing if you're going to use cleaners for wiping or just disinfecting. Don't just randomly pour an amount without measuring it or reading the directions. Make sure that you're using the proper amount. If you're using sprays, make sure that you're not doing that in and around the food. And use a food grade sanitizer if you're unsure, and that really helps too. Um, so in the classroom and in all food service places, there is a material safety data sheet. In the cabinet of my classroom, when you open the doors, on the inside of the doors, you will see that there is a poster for every single chemical that we use. The advanced students have taken the whole material safety data sheet. They have skimmed it down to what's really important to know. So that way, if we do have an accident in the classroom, then that information is very, very handy. I also make sure in the classroom that I'm not using too many chemicals very often that can really cause severe damage. So if you need to know in my classroom, then just open the door and it's right there handy. Otherwise, if you work in a restaurant or if you own a restaurant, you do have to have a binder. And there's a lot of information in that. And that's why I prefer to kind of skim it down. But by law, an MSDS is going to give you information for every chemical around the area that basically says what happens if I got this in my eyes, or I drank it, or it's on my skin, or I'm having a reaction. What do I do? What's the procedure after that? Sometimes it's just drink some water or some milk or rinse for 5 minutes out of the eyes. And sometimes it's you need to go to the hospital and you need to call poison control immediately. So it's important to know what you're dealing with in any type of food establishment. Physical contaminants are the last type of contaminants, and these have two different types. So there are unnatural contaminants. This would be metal shavings, because you open a can, wood shavings, fingernails, staples, bandages, glass or jewelry, dirt, anything that you can physically see. So some of these contaminants might have germs on them. If you dropped a Band-Aid in there, there might be some kind of pathogen in there. That's its own contaminant. The Band-Aid itself is the physical contaminant. The other type of physical contaminants are things that are part of the food. So if you got a peach pit or a fish bone or an apple seed or something that you don't really want in the food, but it's still part of the natural food, then that is a naturally occurring object. But it's still a physical contaminant. I can still see it. I still don't want it in the food. It could potentially cause some kind of harm to your guests. So the symptoms of a physical contaminant could be like dental damage because you bit into something you weren't supposed to, a cut on the inside of your body or mouth, choking, bleeding, pain. It could even go to death. If you ingest the wrong thing, like a little shard of glass that can get within your body and can cause a lot of damage. So, making sure that everything is closely inspected, paying attention is the biggest way that physical contamination is going to be prevented. So, making sure that everybody has good hygiene. We're looking at like hair nets. We're looking at making sure that you don't have fake fingernails or dirty fingernails or jewelry on. A plain gold wedding band, which some people wear when for the wedding band, is the only thing that's allowed. If you have a big diamond ring, engagement ring, you should take that off to prepare food. You'll notice a lot of students comment like, I don't wear any rings, no jewelry. You shouldn't even have a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. I scrub mine and sanitize mine all of the time, but still, when you're preparing food, you shouldn't have that. So, no jewelry for food handlers. Food allergens, that'll be its own video.